Have you ever heard of an old radio that could broadcast the voice of someone already gone? Have you ever wondered if by accident you called out their name, what would happen? And if you had to keep a vow, not knowing who even made it, would you dare keep it till the end? Throughout all 10 episodes of the Haunted Radio, no one dies in the usual way, but some lose their minds, some lose their names, and some lose themselves entirely in someone else's memory. This isn't just a ghost story. This is a chain of lingering resentment, linked by blood, by silence, and by words that must never be spoken again. Don't look away, because only at the final moment will you understand who truly holds the radio. Dusk had just fallen when Tin finished packing up the nets and neatly stacked them onto the small boat. A light breeze drifted in from the edge of the marsh, carrying the musty smell of fresh mud. He pulled up his sleeve, glanced at the old cassette radio tucked in the mesh bag, then turned and called out, "Vu, are you sure you're not coming? I'm rowing alone, you hear me?" Vu sat by the bank, a soda can in hand, and shrugged. "Forget it, I'm out. Last time I went overnight, I came back with a near-death fever. Besides, that bend on lamb, you know how it is. Nobody around here dares go past 7. Tin laughed. "Aren't I someone from here? It's been 10 years, there's not a bend I haven't passed." "You're too superstitious, man." Vu rested his chin in his palm, watching Tin. "It's not that I'm superstitious. I just know fear. That radio belonged to your dad, right? I remember you once told me someone drowned right at that bend. Your dad brought the radio back that same night." Tin changed the subject. "I'm heading out. If I don't row now, the tide will rise. Snakehead and catfish are riding the moon into the water's center. Missing that would be a shame." He stepped onto the boat, lit the oil lamp. A dim glow flickered out. The cassette radio was placed right by his feet. Tin pressed the button. A Kai Luong voice echoed. "Under the vast moonlit water, the traveler is far away. The one waiting is worn thin." Water parted to both sides, and the boat glided gently into the river. The surroundings blurred. The melaleuca trees drooped as if to touch the surface. Tin leisurely cast his nets, softly humming along to the familiar Vong Ko tune. About half an hour later, he neared the bend at On Lam. The wind suddenly died. The river's surface turned glass still, so eerily calm that Tin looked up. The radio started crackling, then fell silent. He looked down. "Out of battery already? I just changed it this afternoon." The static turned into a scraping sound, like metal scratching on plastic. Then, from the speaker, a whispering, raspy voice came through. "Leave now, you're not supposed to be here. Someone's already here." Tin froze. He pulled the battery out. But even without power, the radio kept making noise. A light splash behind made him turn. A shadow darted just beneath the surface. His eyes widened. Fish had hit the net, but their bodies were mangled, torn apart as if something had clawed them midstream. He cursed. "What the hell? I just set these nets. What fish gets ripped up like its guts were scooped out?" The wind surged out of nowhere, whipping through his hair, icy cold. Tin quickly tried to turn the boat, but every time he paddled, it was pushed back toward the bend. He strained harder, sweat pouring. The radio switched on again, but this time, it was his father's voice. "Tin, come home, son, you can't hold it anymore." Tin's face went pale. He screamed, "No, Dad's dead, don't scare me like this." The whispers from the radio layered over each other, hissing, "Go back, trade, hold, return, hold, trade." Trembling, he grabbed the radio and hurled it into the river. Water splashed high, then settled into silence. The boat slowed. He gasped for air, eyes darting around, but just as he turned his head, a figure stood on the water, just 5 meters from the boat. No face, no hair, only 2 pitch-black eyes like bottomless pits, holding the very cassette radio he had just thrown in. The wind roared again. The oil lamp sputtered out. Darkness. The radio played once more. The one who holds the radio must pay the price. The night swallowed Tin and his little boat whole, leaving only the rippling water and the sound of insects screeching louder and louder. The next morning, Tin sat with his knees pulled up in front of the porch. His eyes were blank. The sun blazed, yet sweat still dotted his forehead. Beside him, Vu held a cup of coffee still steaming. His voice filled with concern. "Are you serious? You threw the radio into the river and it still made sounds?" Tin slowly nodded. "Not just once. At first, it was a whispering voice. Then it was my dad's voice. Clear, like he was standing right behind me. And then there was a dark figure, holding that exact radio." Vu looked at him for a long moment, then quietly asked, "Do you think it might have been a hallucination? Did you eat or drink anything weird last night?" Tin shook his head, his eyes still locked on the yard ahead. "I was totally clear. I remember every detail. The cold, the smell of mud, the Kai Luong music, and the cry for help from inside the radio." Footsteps shuffled from the gate. Aunt Tu, the neighbor, holding a basket of vegetables, walked over. "Tin, are you alright, son? I saw you come back real late last night. Your face was as pale as a banana leaf." Tin forced a smile. "Yes, I'm fine, Auntie. The tide was high last night, so I got home a bit late." Aunt Tu glanced at Vu, then lowered her voice. "Let me ask you something real. Okay? Did you bring along the old radio? Your dad's radio?" Vu cut in. "He did, Auntie. He brought it, and he even heard strange sounds coming from it." Aunt Tu sighed, sitting down on the front step. "That radio, your dad brought it back from the bend at On Lam. That night, someone drowned there, and no one dared to fish them out. Your dad rowed out, came back with the radio, covered in moss. He didn't say a word, just cleaned it and started listening every night. Since then, the radio never broke, but also from then on, he began staying up all night, sometimes screaming in his sleep." Tin sat frozen. "My dad once told me he dreamt of someone standing in the river, no face, no hair, just a voice. I thought he was just trying to scare me, but who knew?" Vu whispered, "So what is that radio exactly? Why is it so strange?" "Auntie?" Aunt Tu's voice grew heavy. "Some say it's a vessel. Used to seal something under the water. Maybe a ghost, maybe a grudge, but if taken away too long, what was sealed will follow the one who took it." Tin quickly asked, "Then what do I do now? I already took it out, and threw it into the river too." Aunt Tu shook her head. "Don't go looking for it. If it needs to come back, it'll find its own way. But remember, if you hear a voice calling from the radio, don't answer. Especially if it's a familiar voice. Because if you speak, it'll know your name." A motorbike roared outside the alley. Aunt Tu stood up. "I'm heading back now. Remember what I said. And, don't go near that bend again. The moon rises early tonight, don't test your luck." Tin watched as Aunt Tu's figure disappeared down the path. Vu stayed silent. Neither of them said another word. But both knew, tonight, the radio would return. Night fell. Golden moonlight stretched across the water. Tin lay inside the house, eyes wide open. The lights were off. The silence was bone-chilling. A faint screech came from the kitchen door, like someone dragging something heavy across the tile floor. Then came a familiar click-clack sound, like a cassette button being pressed down. A weak, trembling female voice echoed from somewhere. "Please, help me, I'm so cold, don't let me sink." Tin jolted upright, drenched in sweat. He had no idea where the voice came from. The house was pitch dark. There was no radio here. Yet the voice rang out clearly, like someone whispering right beside his ear. He clenched his fists tightly, trembling as he repeated Aunt Tu's words. "Don't answer. Don't speak. Don't let it know your name." Outside, the wind rose, and under the moonlight, a figure stood at the door. In its hand was the old radio. The radio that had sunk to the bottom of the river. And it began to laugh, light, broken, like metal grinding against metal. Let me know if you'd like the next episode translated the same way, or help with turning this into voice-ready narration scripts, YouTube subtitles, or short teaser text for video promotion. Early the next morning, Vu rode his bike to Tin's house, face tense. "Last night, did anything happen? Are you okay?" Tin opened the door, dark circles under his eyes. "Couldn't sleep." It came back, stood right at the door, holding the radio. I didn't dare say a word, just sat there and watched. Right before dawn, it disappeared. Vu swallowed hard. I think you shouldn't stay here alone anymore. Why don't you come crash at my place for a few days? I live with my mom. Tin shook his head. No, if it's looking for me, then no matter where I go, it'll find me. Besides, I need to know who it is. Or what it wants. That afternoon, the two rowed a small boat back out to the canal's edge, where clusters of water hyacinths floated aimlessly. Tin held a pole, gently nudging each patch of floating plants. I remember clearly, that night. It appeared right here, right in the middle of all this. Vu cautiously scanned the area. You sure? The water looks calm, nothing unusual. Tin leaned down toward the water's edge, whispering. Yet last night, it stood there, silent, holding the radio. And then it started laughing. Suddenly, from the hyacinths, a large perch leapt up, smacking hard against the side of the boat. Tin flinched, then froze when he saw the fish's face, torn on one side. The gash was deep, like it had been clawed by fingernails. Vu panicked. What the hell kind of fish is that? Did something attack it? Tin spoke softly. That night, all my nets had fish like this. Not dead, but shredded. You think that's just coincidence? Vu swallowed. Don't tell me there's something down there. Tin looked straight into his friend's eyes. Not something there. It's rising, and it's angry. Back at the house, the two began cleaning out the room. While sorting through his father's old wooden cabinet, Tin found a small leather notebook. Its pages yellowed with age. On the cover, only 3 faded words. Must not forget. Tin opened the first page, reading slowly. Third night after the sealing ritual. The water no longer flows backward, but each full moon, voices still call from the river. I don't answer, but I know, I'm the one holding it. Vu froze. Your dad witnessed a sealing ritual? You mean, the radio is really a vessel? Tin nodded. And the one sealed inside, maybe they never found peace. Maybe they're looking for a replacement. Vu was shaken. Replacement? What do you mean? Tin gripped the notebook tightly. My dad kept that radio for over 10 years. Now it's my turn. But if I don't hold it anymore, someone else has to. If not, it will choose on its own. Vu turned away. I don't want to be part of this. Tin, I care about you. But this is way beyond anything we can understand. Tin sighed. I get it. But if you'd seen that figure, you'd know why I can't just turn away anymore. Night came. Tin sat alone in his room. The notebook on the table. Wind from the river blew through the cracks in the door. Icy cold. He opened the radio, the one Vu had retrieved that morning. Perfectly intact despite having sunk underwater. He pressed play. At first, only static. Then, a young woman's voice echoed. My name is Neon. I didn't deserve to be buried. I just want to hear my name one last time. Someone, please call me, say my name. Tin went still. He whispered. Neon. The radio shrieked instantly. Wind slammed the door open. From the yard, a woman's voice screamed, shattered like glass. I heard it. Finally, someone called my name. The figure appeared again, but this time, it didn't stand far. It stepped slowly onto the porch. Face blurred in the moonlight, and in its hand, the radio replayed Tin's voice, backwards. Neon, neon, neon. The night swallowed the name. The wind stopped. The light went out. The next morning, Vu returned to Tin's house. As soon as he pushed the door open, he saw Tin sitting silently in the corner, his face pale as a sheet. On the table, the radio lay there, looking perfectly normal, as if nothing had ever happened. Vu pressed him immediately. Last night, were you okay? Did you hear anything again? Tin answered slowly. It didn't just appear. It came inside, stepped right up onto the porch. Like a real person, it played back my voice. Every single word where I called its name. It's like, it's beginning to actually exist now. Vu shuddered. Tin, this isn't just spiritual stuff anymore. You need to find someone who understands curses. Seals. Tin nodded slightly. I've been thinking about Old Man Ko. When I was little, I heard my dad mention him, said he used to help seal off that stretch of water. But now, I have no idea where he is. Vu sighed. Then I'll take you to ask around this afternoon. I heard he lives near the edge of the forest, by the old power station." Evening fell. The two of them pedaled their bikes down red dirt roads. Past a line of trees. They finally found a simple thatched hut. An old man, thin and frail, his hair as white as ash, sat fanning a coal stove, his eyes distant, as if they weren't looking at anything at all. Vu spoke up. "Excuse us, we want to ask about something old, related to the bend at On Lam." Old man Ko didn't even look up. "If it's not the business of the living, don't speak of it. That place has been still for 20 years. Don't stir it again." Tin stepped forward and placed the radio on the wooden plank. "I'm the son of Mr. Nam, the man who brought this radio back. My father's gone now, but I'm still keeping this thing. And it's," started calling someone's name. Old man Ko slowly looked up. His eyes darkened. "You already called its name?" Tin nodded. "Last night, it said her name was Nyan. And I slipped. I said it out loud." Old man Ko let out a long sigh. "Then it's already too late. The one who was sealed, if they hear their name spoken by the living, will slowly break free from the binding circle. When that happens, the one holding the radio will be replaced." Vu was stunned. "Replaced? You mean, like being taken instead?" Old man Ko nodded. "The radio isn't just for playing sound. It's a seal, a vessel holding a soul. Once the name is correctly spoken, the seal starts to crack. And once the radio begins replaying the caller's own voice, there's nothing more that can be done." Tin clenched his fists. "Then what do I do? I don't want to be dragged away. But I can't leave her like this either." Old man Ko stayed silent for a long while. Then softly said, "There's only one way. You must find the place where her body was sealed. Unearth it. Cleanse the hatred. But remember, don't go alone. And whatever happens, don't let even a single drop of blood fall into the water." On the way back, Vu asked quietly, "Are you really going to do it? Find the body of someone who was sealed at the bottom of a canal? I heard people who were buried alive, they can't pass on. Their faces still hold the look of rage." Tin replied, "I'm scared, but I have no choice. Tonight, I'm going back to the bend at On Lam. I need to know where." In that riverbed, the name Nyan was swallowed. That night, the full moon hung high. Tin put on a warm jacket, holding an old flashlight, and went alone to his boat. The wind was still. The river shimmered silver under moonlight. He let the current carry him, reaching the middle of the bend. The radio in his pocket turned on by itself. No one had pressed a button. No one had flipped a switch. The girl's voice echoed again. "My name is Nyan. I was hidden in the mud, under the fourth post to the left of the melaleuca tree. Someone, please." The flashlight flickered, and from the center of the water hyacinths, a pale white hand slowly rose above the surface, pointing directly at the riverbank. Tin drove the pole down to anchor the boat. Eyes locked on the direction the hand had just pointed. That hand was gone now, as if it had never risen. But the muddy water remained murky. Light ripples spreading gently across the quiet bed of water hyacinths. Tin whispered, "Fourth post, to the left of the melaleuca tree." He scanned every patch of swampy mud along the bank. Suddenly, the pole struck something solid. Tin bent down and used his hand to feel it out. A small bamboo post emerged from beneath the mud, wrapped in frayed red fabric strips. A sharp, fishy stench filled the air. Right beneath it, a mound of earth bulged unnaturally. Tin shivered. Quietly, he pushed aside the water hyacinths and used a small knife to dig through the mud beneath. When the blade touched something soft, like fabric, he froze. From under the ground, a raspy voice rose up. "Don't touch, if you don't know who you are." Tin stepped back, lost his footing, nearly tumbling into the river. The radio in his pocket suddenly turned scorching hot. He pulled it out. The surface was dripping, yet not wet. From its speaker, his father's voice came through. "You weren't the one chosen, but you held the radio. If you open it, you must replace. If you refuse, you must return it." Tin's voice shook. "How do I return it? Dad, I don't understand." The voice from the radio replied, "I wasn't the first to hold the radio. I only took it, so someone else could live. Now, that person must come forward." That night, Tin returned home, bringing with him the strip of red fabric he'd found beneath the mud. Vu was already waiting on the porch. "You really went through with it? Did you see anything?" Tin placed the fabric on the table. "I found the ceiling post. And my dad's voice told me he wasn't the first to hold the radio." "So then, who was?" Vu frowned. "You don't think it was your mom?" Tin flinched. "My mom passed away 2 years after my dad. But I never once saw her touch that radio. It could have been someone else." The next morning, Tin went to find Aunt Tu, the elderly neighbor who had been close to his parents. He asked her directly, "Auntie Tu, who was the first to hold this radio? Was it my father?" Aunt Tu stayed silent for a long while, then shook her head. "No, it was Nyan." Tin stood stunned. "Nyan? But she's the one who was sealed." Aunt Tu nodded slowly. "Yes, but before she was sealed, she was the one who held the radio. She didn't drown, she was the replacement, because someone else fled the ritual." Vu gasped. "Fled? Who fled?" Aunt Tu spoke softly. "Mr. Nam, Tin's father. He was chosen to be the sacrifice. But Nyan, his former lover, took his place. And that radio, it used to be theirs." Tin was speechless. "My father never told me any of this." Aunt Tu sighed. "No one dared, son. But now Nyan wants her voice to be heard. And only you can undo the promise made back then." That night, Tin turned on the radio. Nyan's voice rang out clearly. "The one I waited for is not you. But you're the only one who can hear me. If you're willing, I'll show the way. If not, this radio will never play again." The radio went dead. The moon had just slipped behind the clouds. Tin dozed off beside the now silent radio, Nyan's final words still echoing faintly in his mind. The late-night wind whispered softly outside the door. That night, he dreamed, but it wasn't like any dream he'd ever had before. In the dream, Tin found himself standing in the middle of a rice field. The sky was pitch black, no moon, no stars. There was no wind. The rice stalks stood still. Yet they rustled every time he stepped forward. The ground felt soggy, but what clung to his feet wasn't mud. It was blood. A female voice rose behind him. "The blood isn't mine. It belongs to the one I replaced." Tin spun around. A girl in a white al-ba stood there. Her wet hair plastered to her cheeks. Her face was pale, lips bruised, but her eyes held both reproach and yearning. "I don't blame anyone. I just want to know if I hadn't taken their place. Would they have lived a decent life like they promised?" Tin choked up. "I don't know anything, but if you need me, I'll help. I'll find the truth." The girl looked at him, her eyes dark and sunken. "It's too late. The next keeper of the radio has already been chosen. If the seal isn't undone, the new one will be taken. This dream is a warning. Blood will be spilled again." The insects screamed. The field flooded with blood. The girl slowly backed away, fading into the darkness. Tin jolted awake, drenched in sweat. Vu pounded on the door. "Tin, you up? I just saw VY." Tin burst out to open it. "VY? What happened to my sister?" Vu panted, breathless. "She went to the river early this morning. Some kids at the dock saw her carrying the radio. I asked my mom. She said VY was digging around for it at third watch." Tin's knees buckled. "No way. The radio's right here." He ran back to his room. The radio was gone. Only a small, folded note remained on the table. "I saw her crying by the river. I just wanted to comfort her. I thought, if I gave her the radio, maybe she wouldn't be sad anymore." Tin clutched the paper, hands trembling. "VY doesn't know. She's just thrown herself into the ceiling chain." Vu panicked. "What now? What are you going to do?" Tin dashed to the door. "To the bend at On Lam. We have to find VY before nightfall. If not, she'll become the next keeper of the radio. And this time, there's no way back." That night, among the rustling waters, the shadow of a girl in a white shirt stood at the water's edge, holding the radio, her eyes dazed, gazing toward the Melaleuca forest. The radio played an old Kai Luong tune. But midway, the music cut out. Replacing it was V's familiar sobbing. "Brother, why do I feel so cold in this water? There's something pulling me." Rain had started falling since late afternoon. Not heavy, but persistent. Cold droplets slipped through the leaves, tapping steadily against the old tin roof. Tin wore a raincoat, flashlight in hand, already standing by the riverbank while it was still light out. Vu held an umbrella, hurrying over. "You're still going in this rain? It's dangerous. And it's a full moon too." Tin answered firmly. "I have to find Vi. If she doesn't come back before midnight, she'll never return. I can feel it, the radio is slowly taking over her mind." Vu whispered, "You think she's possessed?" Tin nodded. "Not possessed the way people usually mean. It's more like merging with the old soul. This time, if I don't break the seal in time, Vi will disappear, leaving someone else inside her body." Wind howled through the melaleuca trees. Water hyacinths drifted silently. Tin rowed his boat along the riverbank, his flashlight sweeping across every patch of shrubs. Nearing the bend at On Lam, he paused. A faint glow flickered beneath the wooden footbridge. A soft Kai Luong tune floated through the rain. "Rainy night. I miss Mama, miss the lullaby oh." The voice was V's, but something was off. The tone sounded older, dragging every word as if being pulled up from the depths of the earth. Tin shouted, "Vi, are you there? It's me, your brother." No response, but from within the rain, V's figure slowly appeared. Her hair hung down, soaked through, hands still clutching the radio. Eyes wide and vacant, Vi spoke. I saw her standing beside me. At first it was just a voice calling. But the more I listened, the more I felt I wasn't myself anymore. "Brother, do I look like her?" Tin's voice trembled. "Vi, give me the radio. Don't hold on to it anymore. You're being pulled away." Vi shook her head. "No, I hear Dad's voice, Mom's voice, even my own voice from when I was little. It told me not to give this to anyone. If I do, I'll disappear." Tin yelled, "That's not Mom and Dad. That's something using their voices to keep you here. Vi, look at me." Vi stood still. A thin trickle of blood ran from her nose down to her lips. In her hand, the radio began to vibrate. Then it burst out into a chaotic storm of sounds, laughter, crying children, fingernails scratching wood, and a scream. "I don't want to die again. Give me back. I don't want to stay underwater." Tin lunged forward, grabbing at the radio, but Vi screamed, "No, if you take it, she'll enter you. Let me, I can handle it." The rain suddenly poured down harder. Thunder cracked the sky. A lightning bolt lit up V's face, half hers, half the pale, warped face of a woman long gone. Tin dropped to his knees. "If someone must take her place, let it be me. You're still too young. She wants someone to keep the radio, I'll keep it. Go, Vi, go home." Vi stepped back a few paces. Her eyes shimmered with tears. Her hand trembled as she reached out to give the radio to Tin. But just then, a freezing gust swept through. A pale hand reached from the water, grabbing V's leg. Vi screamed, "Brother, help me." Tin leapt forward, but it was too late. A massive whirlpool swallowed Vi and the radio whole. The riverbend fell silent once more. No more rain, no more voices. Only Tin, kneeling by the bank, his trembling hands empty, and a small smear of blood spreading across the wet grass. 3 days had passed since the night Vi disappeared. Rain still fell endlessly. The bend at On Lam had turned cold and deserted, as if no one had ever passed through. Everyone in the village avoided mentioning V's name, as if she had never existed. Only Tin, each day he sat by the water's edge, eyes fixed on the cold, lifeless river. Vu came and placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. "You've got to eat something. It's been 3 days, and all you've had is water. If you collapse, who's going to find Vi?" Tin's voice was hoarse. "I heard her voice last night, in a dream. She said it's cold, said it's so dark, and someone's making her relearn how to speak, word by word, in a voice that's not her own." Vu frowned. "You mean, she's possessed?" Tin shook his head. "No, it's a soul replacement. Each day, a part of her stops being Vi, and becomes more of someone else." Vu hesitated. "Then, can she still be saved?" Tin pulled something from his pocket, wrapped in a black cloth. He unfolded it, a torn old talisman. Its red border faded, Chinese characters smudged and nearly dissolved. I found it floating in the hyacinths yesterday afternoon. It's just like the talisman that used to be stuck to the back of the radio. But it's torn. I think this is where it all began. Vu's voice trembled. Then, who tore it? Tin clenched his fist. The first keeper of the radio. Or the last one. It could have been my dad. Or, it could have been Nyan herself. That night, Tin went to see Old Man Ko. The elder was burning incense in front of an old altar. The scent of agarwood thick in the air. I found the talisman. It's torn in two. Is there any way to fix it? Old Man Ko looked at the talisman and nodded slowly. This was once written in the blood of the sacrificial substitute. If it's been torn, that means the person rejected their duty. It's not easily restored. Tin spoke quickly. I don't want to keep anyone trapped in the river anymore. I just want to trade my life. So the soul in the radio can be released. And VY can come back. Old Man Ko sighed. The trade can be done. But you must rewrite the talisman using your own blood. You must say the name of the one underwater correctly. And when it's over, you'll carry the memories of both VY and Nyan. Tin stayed silent for a long while. Then nodded. I accept. Midnight, by the riverbank, in a thin veil of mist. Tin sat writing the talisman. Each stroke bled from the tip of his finger. When he finished the final character, a cold wind swept through. From the water, a figure surfaced. It was VY. She stepped slowly toward the shore. Her hair was drenched. Her eyes closed. Tin knelt and raised the new talisman high. Return her. Take me. VY opened her eyes. But they were no longer V's. They were Nyan's. She smiled, gently and sorrowfully. I never needed someone to die for me. I just needed someone to remember me. Truly. To call my name and forgive. The wind stopped. The talisman suddenly tore itself in two. This time, no one had touched it. It split on its own, turning to ash. VY collapsed into Tin's arms. Her eyes closed. Her lips moved. Brother, it's so cold, but I remember you now. The radio floated gently down the river, playing an old Kai Luong verse. One returns, within the wind, leaving behind a pause still waiting. Since that night, VY had lain in a deep sleep for 3 days. No fever, no chills, no words. She only breathed faintly, as if her soul was still lingering somewhere across the water. Tin sat beside her, dark circles under his eyes, hands clutching tightly to his father's old leather notebook. Vu stepped in, holding a bowl of hot porridge. I made this. You should eat a little. If VY wakes up and sees you looking like a dried corpse, she'll scold you. Tin didn't move. I'm afraid, when she wakes up, she won't be VY anymore. The talisman is gone. The radio is lost. Everything I thought was the ending feels like it was only the beginning. Vu set the bowl down. You were right. I just saw Old Man Ko this morning. He said, even though VY came back, the old vow hasn't been broken, because the keeper of the radio hasn't been officially replaced. Tin turned sharply. You mean, someone still has to keep the radio? Even though Nyan's been forgiven? Vu nodded slightly. Yeah, the curse is a circle. To break it, someone has to step into the center. If there's no one, the circle holds. The radio is the keeper of that vow. Even if it's gone, it still exists, in another form. Tin clenched his fist. Then I'll be the keeper. I won't let this happen again. Vu looked at him, shaking his head. No, you've already carried it once. I'll take it now. I don't have anyone, no sister, no aging mother, no attachments. Tin's voice was firm. Not everyone can bear it. You're too spiritually fragile. You haven't heard its voice at midnight. Haven't felt that cold crawling through your bones. Vu gave a sad smile. That's why I need to do it. So you and VY can keep living. In this life, I already owe you too much. Before Tin could stop him, Vu pulled out a folded piece of paper from his coat. This is the vow I wrote. I already signed it in blood. If Old Man Ko performs the ritual tonight, I'll become the keeper of the radio. I've chosen. Night fell. A crescent moon hid behind the clouds. Old Man Ko prepared the ritual beneath the large melaleuca tree. The wind howled louder than usual. In the center of the ritual mat, a small object lay covered in a black cloth. Old Man Ko spoke softly. The radio is not gone. It has simply changed form. When the new keeper accepts it, it will appear, and from now on, all lingering spirits will bind themselves to the blood of the one who holds it. Vu knelt. Tin stood behind him, fists clenched. Saying nothing, Old Man Ko began chanting. The fire in the brass censer burned a pale green. The black cloth slowly lifted off the strange object on the mat. It was the radio. No scratches, not old, but there were no buttons. In their place, at the center, was a red slit. Like a cut of fresh blood. Vu reached out his hand. Old Man Ko's tone grew serious. Once you touch it, there's no turning back. You will see, you will hear, and you will remember things you should never remember. Are you certain? Vu gave a faint smile. I've made my choice. Better me than someone else. As his hand touched the face of the radio, blood seeped from his fingertip. The radio lit up with a faint red glow, then went dark. The wind stopped. Everything fell silent. But in that moment, Tin heard a voice whisper faintly in his ear, a deep voice. Not clearly male or female. The new keeper has been chosen, but not the last. One more will be called by name. Since the night of the ritual, Vu was no longer the Vu everyone knew. No more grumbling about life. No more lounging with legs crossed at the streetside cafe. His face was always quiet. His eyes distant, as if listening to something only he could hear. Tin brought over a bowl of porridge and placed it on the table. If you don't eat, I swear I'll smash that radio. Listening to it all day. No sleep, no talking. Are you planning to go insane for real? Vu gave a faint smile. I hear so many things now. The sound of water, weeping, someone calling me, the stand-in keeper. But sometimes, I even hear myself, saying things that never happened. Tin grew concerned. What if the radio is draining your memory? You keep repeating the same lines as last night, and the night before that too. Vu nodded slightly. It doesn't drain, it shares. A part of me is floating out there somewhere in the river. But because of that, I've started to see the things we used to overlook. Tin clenched his fist. I don't want you to become like this. Isn't there a way to break the link? Vu shook his head. No, but I can seal it. The radio doesn't choose people on its own. Someone has to willingly touch it. So, I'll leave. I'll take it with me. And make sure no one ever touches it again. Tin was stunned. Where will you go? If you leave, there's no coming back. Vu placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. I know, but it's better than letting someone else, a child, an old lady, or even VY, accidentally touch it. The cost of a vow is never cheap. That evening, Vu rowed out to the middle of the river. No goodbyes, no farewell. Only Tin stood from afar, eyes unblinking. On the boat, Vu turned on the radio one last time. His voice echoed softly. I am the final keeper. From now on, this radio belongs to no one. If anyone hears my words, please don't call my name. And don't turn it back on. The radio lit up, one final glow, then fell silent. The water closed over, leaving no ripples behind. Time passed. VY recovered. She remembered nothing clearly, only that whenever the wind changed, she'd often dream of a small boat drifting through the night, and a voice whispering by her ear. Don't call my name. Don't search for me. Just remember, I was once there. That's enough. Tin closed the notebook, placing it back inside the wooden chest. He reattached the old red cloth to the side of the cassette radio, placed it in a drawer, and locked it. Etched beneath the lock was a small inscription. To keep, not to bind. But to remember, someone once kept it for us. If you've just finished the 10-part journey of the haunted radio, thank you for staying with us until the very end. Some stories don't need jump scares to chill you to the bone. Some vows don't need blood to bind, but still weigh on a person's entire life. If something in this series lingers with you, a moment, a look, a line left unfinished, leave us a comment. Type 1 if you'd like to hear more stories like this. Or type 0 if you simply want to hold on to the feeling quietly. Like the way Vu left, silently, without a sound. And don't forget to subscribe to Bong Toi Trong Dem so you never miss another story. where we'll meet again. Somewhere between the edge of life and beyond.